Good morning, real estate investors, and welcome to the only podcast that is committed to setting as many people free through real estate investing as we can. I'm your host, Scott Jelinek, the author of Work Just Gets in the Way of Making Money, and my brand new book called The Art of the Slow Flip. For anybody out there who's interested and has not read The Art of the Slow Flip yet, I am giving away a free copy to anybody who would like it. Just pay the shipping and handling. I believe it's $7.95. You can just go to slowflip.com. That's slowflip.com. And so today we are doing something different. I've had guests on here that have been investing for a year, 10 years, 50 years, and we always love to hear their stories and how they went from A to B. But today I'm having somebody on who has only been with us as a slow flipper since February, started in February. And so I thought it would be really good to hear his story because he's still relatively brand new. He's already acquiring properties, already going through the process. So I thought it'd be great to hear how he went from here to there in this short period of time. Again, we're talking since February. We're recording this right now in June of 2023. So welcome, James. How are you today?
I'm doing well, Scott. How are you?
I am fantastic. I thank you
Awesome.
very much for coming on. I've been looking forward to
Anytime.
having you on. So you just started with us. Well, before we even get into starting, I want to hear what's your background. Do you have a real estate background, anything prior to joining with us? And what is your background in general?
My real estate background is very limited. I've done a couple flip houses in New Jersey. Uh, I think I had mentioned once to you that the last flip house we did, it got to be so competitive here that we just pretty much got out by the skin of our teeth on the last one. And I just decided that I didn't want to do the flips anymore. And when I found you, it just struck a chord with me, and it sounded exactly what I wanted to do. It wasn't only for myself, but something that I might be able to leave for my kids in the future. Um, my background is in construction, so mostly masonry, concrete, but most of it's residential. I've done a lot of my own stuff, house building, but never per se in the real estate business before.
So you joined us in February of this year. And when did you buy your? So you were talking about what I want is for my kids. So I jumped ahead what I was about to say. And so you started in February, and you were thinking you were doing flips, but flips isn't, and then nothing against flipping. And I've done tons, and I have a lot of our guys who do, but it's an active business. You have to do it today and get paid. And slow flips is the opposite, where, like you said, you're thinking about your kids. It's something we do once and we set it up, and then it's a recurring revenue for, at least 30 years, but oftentimes longer than that. So you started in February. When did you get your first one, your first slow flip?
I think I spent probably a few weeks listening to every single tape that you had in the classroom. Um, I was pretty nervous. I was actually extremely nervous buying my first house. I wasn't even so sure I was going to be able to do it. And I think I was only probably about 3 to 4 weeks in when I pulled the trigger. And when I pulled the trigger on the first one, I was a nervous wreck. But then a week later, a house that I had originally bid on came back on the market. So I didn't want to pass it up. And so I ended up in the very beginning buying two in the first week that I purchased.
Two in the first week. All right.
And then uh, the good news was that they closed and I got the homes. And just the weekend before my closing, I decided to advertise them. And it was pretty much a mistake because I had a lot of people wanting to go to the homes and see them, and I actually didn't own them. And I didn't have a lockbox on them yet. So I was trying to save the information and get back to people. So lesson I learned there was to actually own the house before I listed it.
Right.
But so I had really good success in the beginning, and I was able to get rid of those first two houses in a week. Actually, it was a weekend.
So, James, if you wouldn't mind, do you mind sharing the numbers on those first two houses, what you paid for them, what you sold them
Yep.
for, and how the process went?
The first house was strictly with the base numbers that we always use. I paid 30,000, $3,000 down, 875 a month. The first guy that walked in it bought it.
Wow.
And the second house I paid 35 for, and that was a duplex. And I paid 35 for that, got 4,000 down, $975 a month, 30 years.
And a
So
sales
I think
price
that
of
was in the 90 something thousand. I can't recall.
so James, now I love this, and these are the numbers that I love, and they make the hair on my arm stand up when I hear slow flip numbers. I love it. But you live in New Jersey.
Yeah.
So I wanted to touch on that for a second, because some people that talk to us about joining the Freedom Accelerator program, or even not joining and just doing slow flips on their own, the first thing that I'll hear out of their mouth is, yeah, that's bull. You can't buy a house in these prices. And I know, and they're right in certain areas where you live, but you live in New Jersey. So you didn't touch on where are these houses and how did you come about them and how are you handling it without being there?
Well, I remember watching one of your videos. I think it was the one where I actually joined up. But when I heard the $30,000 houses, I'm like, oh, there's the catch. There's the catch. It sounded too good to be true. There are no $30,000 houses. There's not even $30,000 lots.
Right.
So where are they? And sure enough, when I started searching where you guys, talk about out in the Midwest, I just saw them and I was in awe, because how can they sell this house for 30? And being in the building business a little bit in construction, I'm like, there has to be $50,000 or $60,000 in material in these houses.
Right.
But for what reason or another, they're there. And I was shocked, but they are there, and there's lots of them.
And so have you ever been out there? Have you seen your houses? Or
I've not been out there. No, I have not been out there. I have not seen one of my houses. Photos, a couple videos, which is, I had trouble with one, which was a little bit misrepresented to me, but that's part of the learning process. I look at it. So now I'm going to want some more detailed videos. I remember I just bought one in Peoria, and they went around the whole front of the house. They went around the inside of the house. And I remember the one story you told about, you bought it and then you went to the back of the house and it was gone.
Right.
So the realtor I said, can you go back? And she was, absolutely, I'll go back. And she goes, what do you want to see? And I said, the back of the house. That's really the only thing I want to see, is the back of the house. And she thought it was odd, but I remember your story. So she went around the back of the house and we got the video, and I made an offer on it. I think it was last Monday, and they accepted it on Tuesday. And here we are. I think we're closed next week.
Okay. So now, how many slow flips do you have now?
6.
You have 6 already, and you started in February. So now what is your plan?
I think I started in March, actually.
Okay. I thought it was February, but maybe it was March. You would know better than I would. So what is your plan? What is your goal? Do you have a future vision, a number that you're setting out to achieve?
I look at myself kind of like you. I don't want to put a limit on it. I think I would love, I know originally you had always spoke about the most common number for someone to be comfortable with would be the 10,000 a month.
Right.
That's a good number, but I would like to be a little bit higher than that. So I would like to end up somewhere in the 40 to 50 house range. It's a constant looking for the private lenders, but I do have a couple that we're working with that are pretty promising. I still have a couple left with my current investor. And if the private investment money keeps coming through, that's probably where I'd like to be at, is 40 to 50. But then who knows? I think the way I look at it is, once I start every week, I get something else automated. And so now I have my tenant portal. So they're all in there. They're getting their notices. So that's one thing off my plate. I'm learning more about how to deal with the realtors and the closings and the videos. So that's becoming easier. So every week it becomes easier. So I think as time goes on, I'd like to be as hands-off as possible. But
just be the bank.
So I think only time is going to tell where I want to end up.
Right. I love it. And you know, and I tell you this in training and in the classes, but you're going to find out raising the private money is going to get easier and easier and easier as well, especially because you're going to have now a track record. So when you're meeting someone new and they're saying the same thing you thought before you started, where are you getting a house for 30,000? And you could show them an actual house and an actual sales price and an actual monthly recurring revenue you've been getting for a year. It's going to open up their eyes to the reality that this isn't just a concept, but you are doing it and lenders are making good money on it. You're making good money. Your buyers are happy. They have the home and everybody wins.
It's funny how the reactions that you get, because some people, a lot of people just don't even, it doesn't even click to them. And then other people, like my investor now, my current investor, it took me all of about 20 minutes to convince him to invest. And he went through it. It clicked with him immediately. I have family members who I've asked, and they just told me to leave the room.
Yeah, but I'll tell you when that'll change, James.
Right.
When your lifestyle is all of a sudden being the money coming in supersedes your lifestyle, and all of a sudden,
Right.
like, how come he hardly ever works anymore? How could he afford to go away for a month at a time? How could he? And all of a sudden, they're going to be like, tell me more about this slow flip thing you've been working on.
One of our private investors, who we my investor and myself were trying to get to be a private investor. He actually just got back to us last week and said, I'd like to talk more. After his initial response was, that's crazy. Nobody makes 12%.
Yeah.
Right now, I'm actually doing a job for a financial advisor, and he's an independent financial advisor. So I talked to him a little bit about it, and he said he can't really legally advise his clients to do this. Right. He says, but what I can do is I could say, listen, this might be something you'd want to look at. And so I have him as a lead, and perhaps one day I and him might be able to talk
Absolutely.
a little bit more about it. Yeah.
I've gotten referrals from financial advisors because, again, we guarantee 12%, right? So most financial advisors, not all of them, but most of them shoot for 10%, and the market fluctuates. And so if they're really good, and by good I mean that they're actually are looking out for their clients' best interest, not just their own, it makes sense for them to refer them out to something secure where they're making 12%. Not all of it, obviously, keep some everywhere else, but it just makes sense. I have a CPA who knows their clients, obviously their finances intimately, and they refer me a lot of lenders because they know exactly what my lenders are getting because they do their taxes.
Right.
And it just makes sense. Once they see it works and it's secured, why wouldn't they?
Yeah. So I asked him, I said, he said, we'll talk about it later. We'll talk about it. I said, no, we can talk about it now. I said, why don't you want to talk about it now? He goes, because 12% is just too good to be true.
Yep.
So I don't believe it right now. So I said, all right, I made a deal with him. I told him I would finish the job for him. It was something that no one else wanted to do. So I committed to doing it for him. And when he was, I only agreed to it if he agreed to do a Zoom call with you and I at the end of the job. So, and he said he would do that. So when people find out what it's all about, it really is. It's just, you need to do it everywhere you go.
Yep.
Everywhere you go. It's hard, different ways to approach different people about the money. But everything that you had said originally when I first joined actually comes true. It's some people just say you're crazy, and some of them actually get back to you. And you're like, oh, okay.
So there's only two kinds of people that have ever said no to me, and only one that actually said no, and the other was a yes, but it couldn't work. And I'll tell you why. So I've had that one guy, and I'm sure I told you, that was a referral from one of my other lenders, and he said exactly what you just said. The reason he ended up saying no is it's too good to be true. Nobody can pay 12%. But my guy, who was good friends with him for years, he said every year he would tell him when it was tax time, he would be like, I made $86,000 this year in interest. I made $78,000 this year in interest. And he would tell him, and the guy was always like, nope, it can't be. Nobody can pay 12%. So that was reason number one that somebody would say no. The second reason I've had people not do it wasn't because it's too good to be true, but because we borrow such a small amount. Some people that have a significant amount of money, and I don't mean 300,000 or 600,000, I mean they have 10 million or 20 million. they don't want to do loans for 30 grand and 30 grand and 30 grand because it's not going to move the needle. So I've had some high net worth people tell me, I'll do it if you can guarantee me 2 million or 3 million out. And I'm like, I can't, because we're only borrowing 30 at a time. I said, I'm not going to be paying interest on 3 million. It wouldn't work. And so we won't end up doing deals with them because they want to do it, but they don't want to do a small loan. They want to do a large loan. And I'm trying to stick to our process as we've been doing since 2011. And that's what's been working out fantastically. And you'll see the same thing as you start growing your lenders.
Yeah, I actually did have someone who wanted to lend me money, but they weren't interested in the 30,000. They're like, it's a minimum 250,000. You have to sign this, and we'll go through the application process. And that would be, number one, too complicated for me. But number two, that's what I found a lot is no one wants to do the 30,000.
Not no one. Not no one. Obviously, we have tons of lenders. Yeah.
Yeah. No, there's people, and I personally love the 30,000 model.
Yeah.
It's cut, it's dry, and you get a clearer picture on every property. Okay, I paid 30 for this. I got 30. I bought it for 28. I got 30. I bought it for 35. So I took 5 of my own money. Everything seems more organized to me, staying with that number. Maybe in the future, I know you talk about moving up to some properties up to 50.
Yep.
I'm not there yet, but it's a learning process. Some of these neighborhoods I'm working in have a lot higher rents than others. It's still feeling it out where I should be price point wise on a lot of them, but I haven't really. I had trouble moving one house, but it goes if you're patient and you are willing to. I look at it as if the 3875, 89,000 sale price is great, and that's enough to cover your lender. I'm even okay with going lower. I don't need to make the 200 or the 300 extra,
right?
Because if you break even, with 667 that you pay,
right,
and then you pay another 1,500, and that comes out at 725 or whatever number it comes out to, is still one hell of an investment.
Yep.
It is just, you're not really going to do anything for 5 years and then except just exchange money.
Yep. I bought 2 packages of properties, one being 20 houses at one time and then one at 10 houses. And those 2 loans combined equal about $20,000 a month. I just make a tiny bit on it, break even for the most part. For now, it'll go up over time, but for now, I just about break even. But the way I look at it is in 60 short months, my income goes up by $20,000 a month. I'm like, why wouldn't I do that?
Exactly.
Why wouldn't I? That's another $250,000 a year in just a couple of years. I'm like, why wouldn't I do that?
I found that in the group, we have some real estate investors. And I know one of the newer guys joined, and he's a real estate investor, and he's got some apartments. And he had called me a few times regarding his home for sale, and he had it listed quite high. He paid $27,000, and he was asking 102, whatever it was, and $989 a month or whatever it was. And he asked me for my advice, and my advice said, if I offered you $700 a month for the next 30 years for that 28,000, would you do it? And he said, absolutely. I said, well, then you should be able to do it with the house.
Yeah.
Right. And so so top dollar to me, in my short experience, I've learned that I don't always need to get top dollar. My main goal now is to move the house.
Yep. Absolutely.
Move the house, move on to the next house.
Have them producing.
Exactly. Yep.
Yep. I love it. So I'm going to tell you a very interesting story because this just happened yesterday, and you'll come. I mean, I should say, I was about to say you'll come across it, but I think it's the first time I've ever come across it. I have a slow flip buyer who I sold a house to. I may have told you the story actually about I had a fire in a house. This goes back 8 years or so ago. I bought this house for 25 grand. It had a fire. Somebody left food cooking. The whole house got smoke filled. Not a lot of damage, but the kitchen was burned up a little. Well, I didn't want to renovate it. I got 25 grand from the insurance company. So I had the house completely for free. Right. So I decided I'm just going to sell it as a slow flip with the fire damage. So I sold it really cheap. I think I sold it for $35,000, and he gave me $3,000 down, and he's been paying, I think, $525 a month. But
Mhm.
again, I have $0 invested in it. So I was
Right.
like, it's pure profit. So it's been going on for about 8 years now. Never heard from the guy again. He renovated it. I drive by it every now and then. I see it. It's renovated, tenants in there. Well, he calls me the other day and he lives in California now. And he's like, well, I'm thinking about selling it. And, how much this and how much. And he told me what he wanted to sell for. I was like, whoa, let's talk because I might buy it for that. And so we kind of came to an agreement yesterday. And I say kind of because I'm still trying to get another. We're within $5,000 of coming to agreement. But I even had to call my accountant. I said, how is this going to work? I own the property, the deed's in my name, and I'm going to give him $30,000 because above what he owes me. So I'm going to give him $30,000 just to leave because I already own it. So it's not like
Right.
I'm buying a contract. I'm not like I'm buying a house. I already own the house, but he's only paying me $500 and it'll bring in like $1,200, $1,300 a month now. So my CPA said we're going to call it a contract cancellation fee. And so this way, because I have to show what am I giving this guy the money for? And it feels so weird to me though that I'm paying basically a tenant buyer. I'm paying him $30,000.
But it's still a good deal.
I look at it the way I looked at it is what you just said, James, before. That's what made me think of telling you this story. I looked at it as if the house was on the market right now for that price, would I pay it? And I'm like, without thinking twice. So I
Right.
said, so why am I thinking twice then? Let's just go ahead and do it.
Yeah,
And I'm doing it.
that's one of the things I've learned in the short few months that I've been here is you don't need it no matter what happens, even in the worst case scenario, it's such a great investment.
Yeah.
In the worst case.
And I've had some worst case scenarios.
Yeah.
They all end up being profitable in the end.
Because in the worst case scenario, you might say to yourself today, boy, I had a house that was similar to that house, and I got $875 a month for that house. And you might say to yourself, this house is similar, but I only ended up getting $750. So you feel like it might not be a good deal. But in 5 years, that is a hell of a deal.
And you just do the math on its own. I have one guy who's paying me $5 something, and I know I could get probably $1,200 for that house now, but he's been with me for years and years and years. But he paid off the entire house. I bought that house for like $16,000, and he's been paying for years. He paid off the entire house. I have $0 invested. So I'm like, so yeah, but he's getting a great deal. But I want him to get a great deal. That's the whole reason this business works. Is
right.
Everybody has
needs
to win.
Be happy.
Everybody has to win. It can't just be us. It can't just be the lender. Can't just be the buyer. Everybody has to win.
Yeah. So when he's writing that $500 check every month, he's happy as a clam.
Exactly.
And he's sending it to you, and you're happy to get it.
Yep.
Right. So you preach that in the beginning is everyone needs to make money. Everyone needs to be happy. And that kind of stuck with me. It served me well so far because there were 2 houses that I sold for less, but I'm still not losing money. Right. And in 5 years, I'm making a lot of money.
And this is what's crazy. You say sold for less, and mind you, I don't know your numbers, but why don't you tell me? So you bought it for how much and ended up selling it for how much?
Well, I had one that I really did well on, but the number was smaller. So I paid 17 for one, and I ended up at $625 a month for this one for 17. But it ended up at a $71,000 price.
So I love this. I love this, James, because you're like, oh, and I had this one I had to sell for less. I paid $17,000 and sold it for 71. Right. And I'm like, oh, and that was my loser. I had to sell it for less. That's great.
Well, it was crazy because the market rent in the neighborhood was in the higher sevens. So I felt, but that's what I came to the realization is after I lowered the price and I started to get more interest in it, I'm like, I still got 4.5 times or whatever it turned out to be more than what I paid for the house.
And that's without including the interest.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And I don't know if you remember me telling you, but he decided to move in the day he sent me pictures the other day. He's got a brand new refrigerator, brand new stove, took out all the outlets, replaced the electrical. So he's really doing a good job on the house. And
that is why this business works, because now he has pride of ownership. It's his home. Yep. You're not the landlord. You're just the bank. You're just collecting your monthly payment. And that is what I love about this whole business.
Yeah. And the one that I have on the market now is going to be, this was the one that I was misled on, which is still on the market, which I paid $25 for. And I'm in the mid sevens, and I'm probably going to end up dropping that down. And like we just spoke about, I'm probably going to look on what this house is actually costing me and probably get to a break-even point on this one because I need to move forward.
Yep. The
But
premise
it's
is
still
break even. I always teach
a
break
break
even for
even.
5 years and then be free forever. There's a saying I love, James, and it says if you do what's hard, your life will be easy. If you do what's easy, your life will be hard. And
Right.
I always tell people that. I said, we have two paths. Take the hard one and your life will be easy. And that's exactly what you're doing. You're like, nope, we're gonna make no money now because everybody else is like, I want to make money today. I'm like, nope, we're gonna struggle. We're gonna make no money now, and then you're gonna be free for the rest of your life with your $10, $20, $30,000 a month, and you're gonna be like, it was worth it. 5
Yeah,
years.
well, what I was talking about before, the realtors that are in the group, I think it's almost ingrained in them to always ask for top dollar.
Right.
That's just the way they've always worked. They want top dollar. They're going to wait 2 months until someone pays what it's worth. And with the analogy I gave you is if somebody gave you this, would you take that? And it's like you can answer that instantly. Absolutely take it. I would absolutely take it. So that's the way I look at the houses, because in 5 years, that you're not even going to remember
Exactly.
what that house you sold it for.
You're just processing payments.
You're
That's
just
all.
processing payments, right? And you're like 500, or you got $500 or $600 or $700 from this house. You're not going to. All you know is that you paid off your lender, and this $650 or $750 or $850 is coming to your mailbox every month. Yep, and
So
that's where I'm at with pricing now.
Yep, I agree with you 1,000%. I'm always a long-term thinker. I'm
Right.
always like, even I was telling you about those deals, that's $20,000 a month. I said, people are like, why'd you do a deal? You don't make any money. I said, but in 5 years, I make another $20,000 a month. It's worth it. It's worth
It's
it. 5 years is
good
like
deal.
nothing. When you're 20 years old, 5 years is a lifetime, right? But I'm
Right.
49 now.
I'm
5
50
years
now.
is nothing. 5 years just flips on by. So I'm like, yeah, why wouldn't I do that? And rock and roll. So I'm going to let you go, James, but I want to ask you a final question. So if somebody was listening right now and they were thinking about getting into slow flips, or maybe thinking this is a path they want to go down, what advice would you give to somebody, even though you're only 3-4 months in now? What advice would you give to somebody who was thinking about getting involved in slow flips as their business?
Other than joining you, which to me is priceless. I actually brought it up to my investor. We talked about what levels, how I work up in the levels in the group. And I said, I don't know what level I'm at, level 5 or something. And at level 8, you actually have maybe get your money back or whatever. I said, at this point, I wouldn't even take it. I would not even take it. So I would follow you. I would join the community. The classroom and the community helped me tremendously. I talked with probably a half a dozen to maybe more people. They solved a lot of problems together. Anything from a new lockbox that someone has found to new wording in a contract to just everything you could possibly. It's worth. Sometimes there's things in the community that you haven't even thought of yet.
Right. Absolutely. I hear stuff all the time and I'm like, I got to remember that. Let's do a module on that.
Exactly. There's so much information that I find myself going back in there and doing the search and saying, okay, what did Scott say about bandit signs? So I'll go in there, I'll search bandit signs, and there'll be a whole conversation about it, which is educational. And the second piece of advice I would give is the same one you gave, is just do it. Just do it. It's not, to most people, it's not life-changing money. If you can get an investor for the 30, that is great. That seems to be a hurdle that a lot of people have, but it's definitely not unsurmountable. If you ask enough people and you start to learn and educate yourself on how to present it to people, you'll get your fair amount of rejection, but sooner or later, you're going to find some people, you'll build a track record. And my advice is, like we had said in the beginning of the podcast, is I was a nervous wreck. But I knew that once I got the first one, I would be fine. And that's exactly, I know Mike Barnes always talks about it. He says, I'm scared to death every house I buy. Still to this day, I can't sleep. And I'm like, I close on a house in the morning and I sleep like a baby. I'm comfortable with it now, but that's only because I did do the first one. And that'd be the second piece of advice is join a group and buy your first house. That's really the only way you really learn it, because you run into a lot of different issues and you can listen to it on all the tapes, but until it's so much information, it's almost impossible to absorb it all. So sometimes even this week, I was like, I don't know what exactly Scott wrote on those bandit signs, and I'm sending some bandit signs out to Illinois. I have to go back and look at the tape.
Huh?
Right. So I went back and looked at the tape, but once I did the first ones, learned a lot, and I still learn on every one, as you still learn on 170 something.
Yep, absolutely.
I hear you on the meeting say, I didn't know that.
I'm always
Right.
learning. That's why I love being parts of the groups, because we all learn from each other. Yep, absolutely.
That'd be my advice.
All right, James. Well, I want to thank you a million times over for coming on today. I feel like really valuable because, again, you're still really new and rocking and rolling with it. And so I love to have your insights on how it goes. And again, thank you for the compliment on enjoying the group so much, because I appreciate that, because I'm always wondering, is everybody getting their full value out of it? And I hear a lot of good feedback,
priceless.
so I appreciate that.
It's priceless.
All right. Yeah. Well, I'm going to let you go. You have a fantastic day, James. Thank you for coming on, and enjoy your New Jersey sunshine. I think the weather's nice today, finally.
Not too bad. A little cool, but we're okay.
All right. Well, you have a great day.
Yeah. Happy Father's Day, Scott.
Oh, thank you. And do something today your future self is going to thank you for. I will see you soon.
Thanks, Scott.